All right, friends, welcome to the Salt City Hoops Live postcast. A little bit of a bummer today with the rare blowout loss for the Utah Jazz. I've been harping on it for the past few weeks now that the Jazz, even amongst the 5-game losing streak and the various losses the Jazz were suffering, that the Jazz just don't get blown out. They're just a quality team that brings it to you night in, night out. They have a plan that they execute. They have effort in certain areas of the game that are hard to replicate on a night-to-night basis. So the opponent has to constantly keep tabs on what the Jazz are doing. The Jazz frequently rolling out 4 3-point shooters on every single lineup means that they have these runs in the third and fourth quarter in some of these games that they get down by 20 points. And continue to have this team effort of continuing to jack it up, play good offense, do the best you can on defense, right? Like, stick to the defensive principles and see what you can get and maybe get a little lucky. But the offense, having a consistent offense will bring you back into more games than not. We see that with the Denver Nuggets this year as another example, with an even bigger disparity of a better offense and a worse defense. Like, the offense really does matter, despite what David Locke has told you about defense and Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors over the past 6, 7, 8 years. If you have a consistent offense and a consistent offensive game plan, it's very hard to blow you out when, especially with the depth that Utah has, where you can continue that same philosophy and identity regardless of who comes on the court, right? So Will Hardy, except for random garbage time moments, will always consistently have 4 shooters on the court. He will never intentionally have 2 guys who can't shoot on the court at any point. For this exercise, we are counting Talen Horton-Tucker as an ostensible shooter, if only because he's taking them and they gave him that role to begin with. This was a blowout loss for Utah. Big blowout loss for Utah. No Giannis, no Chris Middleton for the Bucks, so this remains a major disappointment on the win-loss ledger. But this is a game on a road against a tough, well-coached opponent who has to counter a good offensive philosophy. I don't think we've seen a team better than the Bucks over the past 3 years execute a defensive philosophy as to the nails as the Bucks do. They come in every season with a tweak on the defensive philosophy that they had the year before. But regardless of who is on the court, those players are executing what Mike Budenholzer, an absolute wonderful coach, what they are supposed to do defensively. It doesn't matter if Giannis or Middleton are out there. They're going to do what the offense going against a Bucks defense is going to do what Milwaukee wants you to do. And that's the number one rule of offense or defense. Like, sure, you need to have good players. You can effectuate what makes your defense great, and there's just no way for Utah to have a defensive philosophy, right? But when you have a great collection of defenders like Milwaukee has, they can reach beyond good defensive play from their individual players and matchup-based defense into, we're good enough to play any style of defense, and we're going to play one style of defense, and we're going to force you to do the things we want you to do no matter the opponent. So I think that regardless of not having Middleton or Giannis, I think Utah did run into a situation where their offense just couldn't get it going against a defense that was ready for the things that Utah was good at. Before I go into other things that made this game such a blowout loss, I need to have a beer. We've had some beers today, but I picked up the winter pack from Breckenridge Brewery. So and this has been an interesting Saturday night. And sometimes it's hard to bust out the good shit for a blowout loss. So Breckenridge has a very casual Avalanche Amber, 5%. I grew up on amber ales and little Scotch ales and not the heaviest Scotch ales, right? I never liked the Budweisers, Bud Lights, Coors Lights when I first started drinking. My first beer was shout out to Mitchell Bennett, was a Yangling around a fire 4th of July, summer before college. I didn't drink much in high school. I probably had some wine or alcohol at points in high school, but I didn't drink until the summer before college, and it was a Yangling, which is just a lager, like it's nothing special, but Yangling is a much more ambery, maltier lager than I think your standard mass-produced lager is, and that sort of like homey flavor really still sticks with me. I really love the malty amber ale type of things. I love Odell Brewery's 90 shilling ale. It's just one of the most easily drinking Scotch ales you can ever have in your life. Just, I really dig that vibe. So if you ever catch me at a Colorado Avalanche game here in Denver or anything like that, I'm going to tap into the Avalanche Amber, and that's what I'm drinking here today. Our friends at DNVR, they have a partnership with Breckenridge Brewery, and so they got all of this stuff over at DNVR. So an unlicensed shout out to DNVR, which I'm a Denver resident, and I only cheer for one Denver sports team in the Colorado Avalanche. But the folks over there doing work for the Nuggets are absolutely wonderful and pretty awesome folks. And the Avalanche Amber is always something I'm going to have at a bar or in a bottle here, and that's part of their winter pack, a nice chill amber ale to enjoy. So take a couple sips of that while we see if let some folks come in here and enjoy what we got going on for Salt City Hoops live postcast. Typical Saturday night for a blowout loss. Don't expect a whole lot of you to join in here, but I will talk about what happened in today's game, kind of go off of the issues we know. So this might be a little bit of a shorter example stream, just to see what it's like talking to myself about a blowout loss on a Saturday night. I hope you all are enjoying what you had as a Saturday night. So I think the statistics from this game are really interesting and really show where Utah ran into a buzzsaw. So it's not just the shooting stats, but where Utah was shooting, right? So Milwaukee for years has been a team with Giannis in the lineup or without Giannis in the lineup. They have said, we don't care how many threes you shoot. We just don't. But you are never going to be allowed at the rim, right? We're going to go under a lot of screens against some pretty decent shooters. We're going to send bodies at your good driving ball handlers. They are not going to get to the rim. And if they do get to the rim, you are met with Giannis and Brook Lopez. And for as much as we love Rudy Gobert, he never had a Giannis next to him, right? So you can't just hunt Brook Lopez or put him out of the action. You almost always had to deal with issues going to the rim. By the way, Drew Holiday, one of the best shot-blocking guards of the past 10 years. Chris Middleton is no slouch defensively around the rim. Milwaukee has always said, we don't care how many threes you shoot, you're just not shooting them at the rim. And that included Milwaukee giving up a ton of three-point shots in the corners. They took this strategy to the extreme. They said, we just do not care about who your corner shooters are. And if you watch a modern NBA offense, usually the player that ends up getting filtered over to the corner in an NBA offense is a poor shooter. Maybe not a bad shooter, and sometimes not even a poor shooter, but the worst shooter on the floor that isn't the big man or the designated non-shooter on the floor. And they're okay giving those up. And they used to be okay giving those up. As shooting in the NBA gets better and better and better, the Milwaukee Bucks had a drastic defensive shift, and all the credit goes to Mike Budenholzer for this, to say, we're going to change something about our defense. We're still going to give up some three-pointers. And I think part of this change was influenced by Grant Williams for the Boston Celtics, knocking Milwaukee out of the playoffs last year. Not a great three-point shooter, but not a bad three-point shooter either. They were leaving him just wide the fuck open from anywhere on the court. And he destroyed the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs, especially in the final couple games there. So they walk in this season, they say, walling off the rim by our best players gave us a championship. But the margin for error is probably a little bit smaller than we gave ourselves credit for with our amazing defenders. We need to add one more element. Can we ask our defense, including aging players such as Wesley Matthews or players such as Pat Connaughton, who is athletically gifted but sometimes isn't the greatest defender? Grayson Allen, same thing. Can we ask these guys to cover a portion of the three-point line or defend everything from the three-point line? Can we be a great three-point defense and a great interior defense? And Milwaukee right now is putting up fabulous three-point defense and rim defense. Their overall defense right now for Milwaukee is terrifying. And yes, I know they don't have Giannis, which is a big portion of both components of of that defensive strategy. But going into tonight, they still have Brook Lopez, and the guys coming off the bench for Milwaukee are capable three-point defenders, and most of all, they're capable, coachable guys defensively. I'm burying the lead here as to what Utah was able to do, like what kind of shots were they getting. Utah made precisely 0 of their corner threes today. They attempted one attempt of their entire shot attempts today was from the corner 3 spot. And as wonderful as an offense as Utah is, they specialize in figuring out the greatest places to get three-point shots. And not only were they not making any corner threes, they obviously went 0 of 1 from that area. They didn't even take any. They took 1. This is in non-garbage time, by the way, which we had extended garbage time today. I'm taking this from Cleaning the Glass. It's just a great utility tool for real analysis of what happened in the game today. So I know that the garbage time players went in around 7-8 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. So these stats are kind of eliminating all of that. So if there were 3-point shots from the corner in the last 7-8 minutes, this doesn't count that. I watched until about 3 minutes to go in the end of the game. I always like to rewatch to see like how like Ochai Agbaji does and stuff like that and how he did in his limited minutes. But for now, we're talking about a team that shot 1 attempt from the corner position that obviously is in the first percentile for all shots from the corners in the season, and they didn't make any. Now, Utah shot over half of their entire field goal attempts from not in the corner, right? They had 51% of their shot attempts were non-corner three-point attempts. So jacking up shots from the elbow and the top of the arc. Only 24% of Utah's shot attempts were at the rim. A mere 14% in the short mid-range. So if you add this all up, they're not attempting shots at the rim. They're not attempting shots in the short mid-range floater range. 11th percentile and 12th percentile respectively for all games played this season. They're shooting nothing from the corner 3. And they're shooting a buttload of shots from just beyond the arc in general. And guys, they just weren't all that accurate, right? So it's kind of normal, and they had a very average percentage from 3 this game, 34% from 3. And we talk about three-point shooting variances like, oh, that's indicative of there's a lot of variance to that. They can lose you a game, they can win you a game. They just didn't make shots today. Well, if you're not attempting any shots from the corners and the defense is forcing you not to, yeah, your three-point shots are probably going to suck a whole lot more. Took a little beer break. So no, I don't chalk this up as three-point variance. On the other hand, Milwaukee did shoot almost 50% from three. Surely that could come down, and maybe you have a competitive game at that point. But there's a couple things that if you're losing a couple factors of the game, there's no way for you to come back. So Milwaukee shoots great from three. Okay. They didn't have a very weird shot chart, and some of the players that made threes, maybe you wouldn't expect them to shoot that great from three. So let's say that Milwaukee got a little lucky from three. Utah did not get unlucky from three. They were unable to shoot corner threes, and they shot a normal percentage from deep from the non-corner positions. So Utah's got to make that up in other ways. So let's go to the things that otherwise matter for a team to win a game. Offensive rebounding. Once again, Milwaukee is gangbusters offensive rebounding against the Utah Jazz. Every team playing the Utah Jazz is going to have a fabulous offensive rebounding game. There were so many possessions. The percentage today of offensive rebounds wasn't necessarily worse than other games, but some of the types of offensive rebounds the Jazz were giving up today versus other games were just makes you want to throw something out the window. I will always give a limited athletic team like the Jazz starting five a little bit of a pass when it comes to long rebounds that clank off of the rim. They like the Bucks, like to force teams into shooting tough long-range shots above the arc, not at the corners, and they try to force them into tough mid-range shots. They give up a lot of stuff at the rim, but that's not necessarily what they're trying to do. It's just like Kelly Olynyk and Jared Vanderbilt and Lauri Markkanen are not rim protectors. But when it comes to long rebounds, whenever there's a long rebound, I pretty much assume Utah's not going to get it. But today they had a few of those, but today also had the added issue of four Utah jerseys, ugly white and highlighter yellow Utah jerseys, under the basket or in great rebounding position, and a Milwaukee Buck offensive player flying in and grabbing a rebound. Like, none of the Utah players were even there, and it was very, very sad and frustrating to watch those styles of offensive rebounds. As mad as you can get about the style of offensive rebounds, yes, at the end of the day, Milwaukee secured 36.5% of their offensive rebounds in non-garbage time, which isn't Utah's worst mark of the season, but it is certainly way up there. Utah's always counterbalanced these bad offensive rebound percentages that they give up with their own great offensive rebounding. It's very weird that Utah can be this great offensive rebounding team and be a poor defensive rebounding team. That's really indicative of the kind of who Jared Vanderbilt is as a person. Like, just the world's worst defensive rebounder and kind of a sneaky great offensive rebounder. So all the shit we were saying the first 2 weeks of the season, like, he's got some Dennis Rodman in him. He really fucking doesn't, because he doesn't rebound on two ends of the court. He's an offensive rebounding specialist. That's it. So Utah is able to get a lot of offensive rebounds on their own. That is typically what is going to happen in a Utah game. They got 7 offensive rebounds today. They had a 16.3% offensive rebound percentage, which would be in the 9th percentile for all games played this season. I'm going to look up what the average is real quick for teams. The average offensive rebounding percentage given up is the average offensive rebounding percentage for either offense or defense is 27%, right? So on defense, you would expect to give up over a quarter of the shot attempts as offensive rebounds. As an offense, you can expect to secure a little over 1 in 4 shot attempts as secured by your own team. So 27%, and Utah today secured 16% of their own misses and gave up 37% of Milwaukee's misses. That's really, really bad. So when we talk about the possession game, Utah is really always just fighting the possession game. Even on turnovers for Utah, 14 versus 14 for Milwaukee. Nothing special on either front at that point. No one was crazy for turnovers at one point or another. But if Utah can't keep up on the offensive rebounding percentage with their opponent, it's deadly. And combine that with the 3-point discussion that I was just talking about, you're in a lot of trouble. That's pretty much the game story as far as like why the Jazz got blown out, right? Didn't make enough threes, gave up a lot of threes, gave up a relatively unlucky percentage of threes, and then you add the final crushing knockout blow of rebounding. There's just no way Utah's going to recover from that. Lauri Markkanen's first 3 shot attempts were stuffed by Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez had 3 blocks in like the first 4 minutes. He didn't have a block the rest of the game, but he had 3 in the first couple minutes. Great takes by Markkanen, honestly. They were not weak blocks. They were very impressive Defensive Player of the Year caliber blocks from Brook Lopez. On strong takes by Markkanen. So I can't really fault Markkanen from struggling on those shot attempts, but they weren't great. Mark another 3 of 6 from 3. He still remains hot from 3. Malik Beasley 6 of 10 from 3. I love it. 6 of 13, buddy. Keep shooting. Just keep shooting, man. I thought Malik was fine today. His defense was really poor. Simone Fontecchio had probably. I'm the self-proclaimed biggest Simone Fontecchio fan. Had a really terrible game. Jordan Clarkson just didn't matter today, right? There wasn't anything that really stood out poor or bad about him. 3 bad turnovers from Jordan Clarkson today, including a few misses out of bounds. Kelly Olynyk was complete garbage today. 3 personal fouls, 4 turnovers. Made a couple interesting shots, but couldn't defend at all. And got stretched out a lot by Bobby Portis, who had a very nice game. A lot of extremely long twos from Bobby Portis, but they were like they weren't toe on the line 2-pointers, but they were like half a foot on the line 2-pointers. So they were open. They were open shots from Bobby Portis today. I think Milwaukee's 3-point percentage would go even higher if it wasn't for Bobby Portis having a bunch of feet on the line. But Utah's just giving a lot of open shots to guys who can make 3-pointers. Pat Connaughton had his way from 3. Marjon Beauchamp, the late first-round rookie this year, they were giving him all sorts of license from 3, and he made 4 of 7, right? Like that, he's a rookie with limited skills. That's what he's going to do today. George Hill 1 of 2. Wesley Matthews 2 of 4. Brook Lopez 1 of 3. Bobby Portis 2 of 5. Grayson Allen 1 of 2. Like all these like 1 of 2s, 2 of 4s, you're like, it doesn't really matter. That adds up to 48%, right? And if you're giving up 38 3-point shot attempts and they're making 18 threes, that's a lot. Like, that's not an insane amount, but you're going to lose that if you're going 16 to 47 on the other end. And no corner threes. Walker Kessler played a mystifyingly small 14 minutes tonight. No fouls for him. And with Brook Lopez playing as well as he did, I really thought Walker Kessler should have come in earlier in the game in the first and third quarters than he did. He didn't play at all in the third quarter. And I thought, if you're going to put him to the fire and play well and play through things like you do against New Orleans, like he had a lot of errors against New Orleans too, but Hardy recognized him as a great option against New Orleans. And I thought it was weird that we just weren't giving him the run that he deserved, in my opinion, against Brook Lopez, who early on was completely ruining Utah's shit. So, interesting game as far as the minutes go, as far as Walker Kessler is concerned. Nickeil Alexander-Walker remains the backup point guard with Colin Sexton out. I hate him as a lead point guard type player. I do think he was miscast as a point guard in New Orleans when they drafted him. They suffered some injuries with Lonzo Ball and such, and so you had to put Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a point guard in a lot of situations in New Orleans. But I do think that miscast situation puts him in a better position to be this new secondary ball handler if he gets to play alongside of Colin Sexton, right? Whereas a Taylor Horton-Tucker, you put him alongside Colin Sexton, now you just got two kind of like monopolizing ball handling types of guys. Whereas N'Keal has a little bit more of a wider skill set than Taylor Horton-Tucker. I think Horton-Tucker is the better rebounder of the two. And I think their defense is a wash. N'Keal Alexander-Walker has gotten a lot of flowers for his defense on Twitter and on the broadcast over the past couple games. I don't think it was appreciably all that decent. I think it was fine. He got a lot of credit against CJ McCollum the past two nights. There was a lot of times that he got lost or badly beat by McCollum that I was like, it's fine. Like, I'll give it a C-, D+. But it's not like he's this great defender, right? Obviously, coming out of Virginia Tech, that was his calling card, right? You would say, like, oh, this is a classic 3-and-D guard. Like, he can defend anyone, and he's going to bomb the lights out of the basketball, and he's got a great skill set for dribbling. This combo guard who you don't want to be a point guard, but he can defend anybody, he can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass a little bit. He's really kind of transformed who he is as a player in the NBA. Definitely better than Horton-Tucker. I'm very glad to not see THT on the court ever, frankly. Of course, I declared myself a net positive on THT a couple weeks ago, and he immediately started getting DNP coaches' decisions. So we'll have to check back on that. His shooting stats are pretty abysmal. I think that's got to be the reason he's taking a seat. Is like he's probably playing better than N'Keal in practice, but if you can't shoot the basketball and you're shooting 28% from all over the floor, like we got to put in somebody who can at least put the ball in the basket. If you're not going to be like, if all things on balance, like yeah, we're going to prefer the offense over the defense at this point. And their defense, like I mentioned, their defense is not that much different. But he's also more fun to watch. Like his give a shit level is a lot higher. His mental ability is a little bit higher. He's fun, and he has a connection with Kelly Olynyk from Team Canada. I think his Team Canada experience with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is his cousin, I think really helps him just mature grown men basketball in another environment. Like playing for a different team really helps him. He was fine, but like he's a minus 14 in 18 minutes, right? And it's fine to be minus 14 in 28 minutes like Lauri Markkanen, right? Where it's like, look, we got blown out, we tried, minus 14 in 28 minutes, it is what it is. Minus 14 in 18 minutes means you are the problem. Simone Fontecchio was minus 16 in 15 minutes. It's even worse. That shows like, hey guys, you are the problem as to what happened here. So it is what it is. I think he's fine. Good combo. I love the battle between him and Taylor Horton-Tucker. I love Leandro Balmaro to steal that role going forward as the tertiary playmaker. Maybe we can move Leandro Balmaro to pure backup point guard. You have Colin Sexton playing his natural role of, an advanced combo guard. Because Balmaro is a pure passer, pure kind of point guard kind of guy. Blowout loss for Utah. It's amazing how long I can go talking about individual players and what it means for Utah and all these things like this. Just trying to see if there's Vanderbilt 0-4 today. All parts of Jared Vanderbilt's layup package remain completely broken. He's just not a reliable offensive player when it comes to scoring the basketball. And it's not just from three. He can't score from anywhere on the court. So he's smart with the basketball. Like if he gets the ball on a pick and roll or something like that, you can rely on Jared Vanderbilt to make a pass, make a good decision probably. But if he decides he's going to try to score the basketball, it's usually going to end up very poorly, right? Like you need him to be like at least be bad, at least be kind of okay. Jared Vanderbilt's scoring prowess when he receives the ball in the paint is just total dump garbage, and it's really unfortunate to see. because we want Jared. The reason I say I conclude that so softly, like, oh, it's unfortunate to see. We need Jared Vanderbilt to be a thing, right? I think it's a mistake on all these podcasts that I keep hearing that Jared Vanderbilt is like the second or third name mentioned is like, who is the next Jazz guy who's going to be part of a championship squad? And you obviously first mentioned Lauri Markkanen. Like, the second name out of these people's mouths is Jared Vanderbilt. Like, I'm sorry, where do we start giving Jared Vanderbilt all these flowers like he's a guaranteed part of the future? He had one rotation season for Minnesota from his time in Denver where he was not a rotation player. Intriguing player from Kentucky that Denver had, and Denver is notorious for not playing intriguing, good talent. Knock, knock, Zeke Naji, knock, knock, Bol. Bol having a fabulous season for the Magic after not really getting any burn whatsoever in Denver, or really Denver giving the patience to him. Zeke Naji is completely buried on the depth chart behind DeAndre Jordan. And yeah, maybe Naji is not half the rebounder as DeAndre Jordan is, but like, you want to put Naji in a position to succeed so that maybe you don't have to rely on Jokic playing 48 minutes a night. Anyways, obviously, Jared Vanderbilt coming from Denver plays a decent rotation role in Minnesota. You're looking at him thinking, like, there might be a real player there. It's not like we're going to trust Denver to make that decision. And he was okay in Minnesota. He comes over to Utah. His first couple weeks does what he did in Minnesota, an extra 10 to 20%. And we all get really excited. And he doesn't do anything more than that. If I hear anybody talk to me about his corner 3-point threes or his 3-point attempts, I'm going to go insane because he doesn't have a good stroke and he's shooting them with zero contest. On Thursday, he shot a corner 3-point shot, nobody within 10 feet of him. The first contact the ball made was the top of the backboard. I will give guys, even like good shooters and bad shooters, like either end of the spectrum for shooting. If you hit the side of the backboard, like if you've shot a basketball, you kind of understand how that can happen. Like you just the form wasn't lined up and it just came off the left or right side of your hand, depending on how handed you are, and you just hit the side of the back. It looks like shit. Like hitting the side of the backboard looks awful. Right? But if you were shooting the same type of accuracy from the top of the arc, you'd catch the right side of the rim. It'd still be a very clanky, horrible shot, but it wouldn't look as embarrassing as hitting the side of the rim. Guys, hitting the top of the backboard, that doesn't happen. Right? So he's not going to be a good shooter there, and he still isn't. He's got eons and chasms and light years to go for any sort of perimeter shooting, but that dude needs a layup package. He needs to figure out how to lay the ball in around contests at the basket. What was it, Tuesday night? He had that crazy reverse layup where he's falling down and threw the ball at the rim and got the and one. The ball went in, he gets an and one. Guys, that wasn't skill. That's an Alec Burks style, like, plan reverse layup where he's got some great spin on the ball. We saw Donovan Mitchell do that for years. No, that went in by accident. He doesn't suddenly have, like, this falling down reverse layup. And I don't think people are really suggesting he does, but I think it's very underrated how poor his paint finishing is. And I think the only reason I'm going in on this is because he said that was his number one focus going into the season. Which is both extremely self-aware of Jared Vanderbilt to say, that is the skill that is going to matter for me. Finishing at the rim. If I'm going to be the non-shooter on the floor, the designated rebounder or offensive rebounder, for the Jazz or anybody else, for this iteration of the Jazz or for a future iteration of the Utah Jazz. If I'm going to be the non-shooter on the floor, boy, I better have some ability around the rim. Right? Maybe not. I'm not going to finish 75% of my attempts at the rim like a Rudy Gobert or Walker Kessler, but like at least I can be a threat when I get the ball off the catch to use my he's got speed. He's got a couple dribble moves, and he doesn't translate them into finishing good possessions at the rim. He's always falling over. He's always getting it contested. He's always pump faking. I just want to see real strong, that fast twitch athleticism that I've come to love from Jared Vanderbilt. I want to turn that into getting on top of the rim or getting to the backboard and laying it in. He doesn't have huge verticality where he's going to just fucking cram it on guys. That's not going to be his thing, but he does have the twitchy athleticism to do those quick little layups off the catch, and we just haven't seen him. That's my soliloquy on Jared Vanderbilt that I feel like I give once every 2 weeks. Looking at the Jazz schedule here, I know they're on a Midwest little road trip. Yes, Monday we got the Cavaliers. Tuesday against the Pistons. Both of those are 5 o'clock starts Mountain Time. So we'll see what we do for a postcast there. Rare blowout for Utah. This is their worst loss of the season. I want to look up how bad it is versus the others, but this is only their fourth loss for over 10 points. The Jazz don't typically get blown out. They got blown out by scheme defensively. They got blown out by scheme from 3-point shooting, and the effort just wasn't there from a lot of areas. Not worried. It's the first game on the road. They're going to get up for Cleveland, which will be a much better team than the no Giannis, no Middleton night tonight. And then a back-to-back against Detroit. I wouldn't be Detroit's missing a couple guys too. Cade Cunningham is going to be out for the season, but Detroit's got a lot of athletes too. They're a great rebounding team. That's kind of Utah's issue, right? Actually, I'm not sure if Detroit isn't necessarily a great rebounding team, but they are. They got some bodies who like to rebound. I'm looking it up now. They're 23rd in giving up offensive rebounds, and they are 8th. 3, 4. They're 9th in offensive rebound percentage. So yeah, Detroit, their offensive rebound percentage is 28.1%. That would be 10. That is 10th in the NBA. That'll be a problem for Utah. But on the other end, they're a bad defensive rebounding team. So let's see if Utah can make up for that in a different way. This has been the Salt City Hoops Live Postcast. Love having you here. Hope you're listening to this on recording. I'm going to enjoy my beer and have a great night. And happy holidays. We'll catch you in the next one. Good night.